Good evening. The May 4th, 2022 meeting of the West Springfield Planning Board hereby called to order at 6 p.m. In accordance with MGL Chapter 38, must announce that anyone intending to tape the meeting must identify themselves to the clerk and provide his or her name and address for the record. And we inform those present that any document that is to be considered or discussed must be made part of the record of the meeting, and the original or copy must be submitted to the committee before there will be any discussion regarding that document. Documents include photos, plans, drawings, computer printouts and simulation, video presentations and the like, as well as letters and written material. All right, first on the agenda, we're gonna do the board reorganization or? No? Oh, we're still short. We can't do that, so we'll move that to the, all right, public hearing, 6 p.m. Mayor Reichelt, Councilor Flam, the hearing is to consider a petition for a zoning ordinance amendment to 300-6.3 general regulations applicable in all zoning districts to prohibit impervious surfaces within 5 feet of the property line with certain exemptions, to allow accessory structures up to 200 square feet to be located at a minimum of 5 feet of the property line, to allow accessory structures up to 400 square feet to be located at a minimum of 10 feet from the property line, and to allow accessory structures to be located a minimum of 5 feet from the principal structure. I guess you're doing the present,
I guess so.
yeah, congratulations.
So I'm going to sort of do this in reverse order of how it's written in the hearing notice. I'll address the impervious surface proposed change first. The proposal is to add a subsection that states no impervious surface shall be permitted within 5 feet of a property line. This shall exclude access drives which intersect with the street right-of-way and sidewalks 4 feet in width or less. So currently there is no restriction on paving right up to your property line, and sometimes that results in storm water or surface water runoff directly onto a neighbor's property, and there are often disputes that they ask the town to get involved in, and it's really not our position to be regulating those types of disputes, but this should hopefully prevent more of that from happening.
Snow.
What's that?
You know, if they plow it, the snow's gotta go on the other people's property.
Yeah, I'm talking more like if you get a heavy rainstorm and your neighbor's patio runs the length of your shared property line, and all their rainwater is going to dump into your yard. I mean, there is some natural flow of water between properties that, of course, happens. But when it's paved, it's a channelized, more direct flow that is more likely to cause problems. So, but it does have an exemption for obviously a driveway where it comes up to the street. And if you have a sidewalk, those types of things, we don't want to restrict people from having those typical uses. It's more geared towards extra paving. So I don't know if you have questions on that or if you want me to move on to the next part.
I don't. I pretty understand it.
Okay. So the next part, these are sort of unrelated, but they're in the same section. That's why they're grouped together. The next part is related to accessory structures. Currently, we require accessory structures to be located 10 feet 15 feet from a principal structure, regardless of size. And depending upon the size, the larger it gets, the further it has to be from the side property line. So currently, anything up to 400 square feet has to be 10 feet from the side and rear property line. Anything up to, or anything greater than 400 square feet has to be a distance equal to the height of the structure or 15 feet, whichever is greater. So if you have a 420 square foot garage that you want to build currently, and it has a 15-foot height, it has to be 15 feet from your house and 15 feet from the property line. And a lot of the times that ends up meaning it's in the middle of somebody's backyard. Same thing for anything up to 400 square feet. So if you got a shed from Skips that's 350 square feet, it's going to end up being 10 feet off the side and the rear and 15 feet away from your house. And again, if you have a small lot, it's going to be right in the middle of your backyard. And so we've gotten a lot of complaints about that over the years. And this is just an attempt to address that. As far as it being less feet from the principal structure, I don't see couldn't really understand the reasoning why that separation was required. If you want to put a shed next to your house, like, who are we to stop you? The 5 feet, though, is required for fire code reasons.
I was just gonna ask, what's the fire, 5 feet?
Yeah, and I guess probably depending on size, it might get larger, but that would be addressed during the building permit process. But the 5-foot minimum was what I spoke with the building commissioner about.
Did the fire department look at this at all?
And they had the opportunity to,
No comments?
no, I don't think we got comments on any of these, yeah.
I mean, if fire and building don't have an issue with it, I don't see how we can, but.
And I just want to throw into the requirement that anything greater than 600 square feet needs a special permit is still in place. So through that process, if you get a large accessory structure that somebody wants to build, you can require them to place it further away through that special permit process.
I don't know if that's,
What brought this on? Is it just a general review and try to change this, or, because I know that we usually get people that have a problem with, this and are bringing it forward, so.
Yeah, I mean, there's one woman that stands out in my mind who just had a tight lot and wanted to put a shed, and it was like smack dab in the middle of her lot. And I don't encounter it as often because usually they go to the building department, but the building department hears it all the time. It's more the smaller structures that people struggle to place in a area that they would like. The bigger structures, like a detached garage, it doesn't come up quite as often, but it is a reaction to complaints.
Would this, other than the 5 feet, would this be something that these people, even if this was unfavorable, would this be something that those people could still come and get a special permit for to move it closer to 5 feet, or no? Or are they just out of luck, period?
No, so these minimum amounts cannot be varied without going to the Board of
Got it.
Appeals for a variance, and there has to be a hardship.
Got it, okay.
400 feet's pretty big. And that's 20 by 20, that's a two-bay garage.
Yeah, it's, usually the two cars are around 400, a little bit bigger, because
Yeah, maybe a little deeper, but I mean,
and wider,
typically,
yeah.
doors 8 feet wide, that's a two. Up to 400 feet to be located a minimum of 10. Oh, minimum of 10. Nah,
Yeah, so the 5 feet only applies to very small,
right.
like sheds.
Yeah,
And then it goes up to 10, and then, like I said, 15, or the height of the structure, whichever is greater.
So if someone wanted to put a 400 square foot garage, and it had a second floor on it, like a loft, and they could do that?
They could. I mean, it would have to, they couldn't have the loft for an apartment or a business or anything, but.
That, would you be able to count the loft
Well,
as square footage?
I'd have to ask the building commissioner how he would do it, because I don't know that if it's a loft with sloped ceilings, how much of that counts towards the square
If there's
footage.
stairs going up
Yeah,
versus a
so
ladder.
how that specifically would be calculated, but yes, I mean, the accessory structure is greater than 600 square feet in area, so that includes top and bottom.
And with this minimum 10 feet, it would still be 10 feet or the height of the property if greater, or is it just 10 feet now?
It's just 10 feet. Where the height comes in is only if they're greater than 400 square feet.
Got it, okay.
That's what I'm saying, so theoretically, someone could put up a 20 by 20 garage and have
Yeah.
15-foot ceilings in there so they could lift stuff up. You know, what I mean, that could be pretty tall next to
Now
next to
listen,
your
greater
line.
than 400, right? So if they did put a 400 square foot garage up, you just said it was greater than 400.
Yeah, so
So it'd have to be
401
401
or
to
more.
put a second story on.
No,
No.
that's how that's the trigger for the height to become involved in determining setbacks. So if it's 400 or less, it's a flat, it's 10 feet or 5 feet if it's less than 200 square feet. So, a 400 square foot, two-car garage with a Cape-style roof on it is probably gonna be more than 10 feet.
So again, 400 square foot footprint, if they want to put 15-foot ceilings in the garage so they could not put a car lift in there, they could.
But 15 feet, not 10.
No, 10 feet.
Right, I think, I just, so you're saying it doesn't factor in over 400 feet unless a second floor is in there?
No.
So the height is not factored in until you put in a second floor?
No.
So structure, I'll read it so you can hear it. Structures greater than 400 square feet shall be a minimum distance of 5 feet from the principal structure and shall be set back from the side and rear property lines a minimum distance equal to the height of the structure or 15 feet, whichever is greater.
That's greater than 400.
So the minimum it will be for a structure of 401 square feet or more, the minimum it will be set back is 15 feet, but it'll go up from there if the height is
If the height
greater.
is, but anything 400 square feet or less is
10
just 10 feet.
Right.
And so
it can go
I think what
however
Frank
high
is
they
saying
want.
is if like you do the square footage and they don't put a second floor, they could have essentially whatever height they want.
Yeah, that's how it is now. I mean, it doesn't,
I mean, is it gonna happen? No, but in theory, someone could put a two-bay garage in, 400 square feet, with 15-foot ceilings and put a car lift in it. But,
not with a permit, but the car lift, that is.
well, I mean, you could put a car lift if it's not for business.
Isn't there some kind of pneumatics that would require a building permit? No?
Nope. Nope, just
No.
bolts to the floor and plug it in.
Well, in that case, that would be possible now. So there are things,
Right, that really doesn't change, right? They can do
No.
that right now.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
the issue of it getting closer to the property line. I mean, it's not a big deal, I guess.
and you have to think, there are different areas of town and neighborhoods where lots are small and tight and narrow, and there are cases where they can't even put a shed or a one-car garage even. We had an elderly woman that wanted to put up a one-car garage so that she didn't have to clear her car off in the winter, and she couldn't. There was just nowhere for her to put it meeting these setbacks.
If this was in place, she would've?
She would have, because the issue was the distance between her property line and her house, and having it 15 feet from the structure, and then so far off the property line, there was just no way. But all of her neighbors had that, because when the houses were built, it was allowed. So we run into that quite a bit.
So Al, could this accessory structure be taller than your main
No.
house?
No,
So if you had a ranch, you wouldn't be able to build an accessory
no,
structure?
and
with-
that's current regulation. You cannot, your accessory structure cannot exceed the height of your principal structure.
Oh,
Or
even-
square footage,
Even if it's under 400 feet?
correct.
Oh, I'm fine. All right. Anything else before we open it up? Anybody in the audience got any questions about this? Comments, concerns? Let me put my surprise face on. Chet, come on up. Name and address.
I'm sorry, Chet Semaras, 41 Vine Road. The concern that I have is this is a 5-foot area to the side. For the setback on the 200-foot structure. As the chairman has stated, 400 foot is a two-car garage, 200 square feet is a one-car garage. As you put your structures only at 5 feet from neighboring people, that devalues properties. Makes structures closer to everybody's properties. That's why the town went to a larger lot size years back, so that we don't have clusters of structures next to each other. As the chairperson also said, you could raise the structure to a height on a one-car garage, just like you could a two-car garage. Now, if it's a ranch, you can't do that, but if it's a two-story home, you can. And having a two-story, not quite a two-story, but a 15-foot ceiling height of a one-car garage, 5 foot off the property line, can cause problems, and it devalues properties to abutters. So I would say that many parts of this amendment, I think, are good, but in some of the amendments that are out in this here, I think should be looked at again before an approval is put on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I have another
Go
question.
ahead.
In the older neighborhoods, like the homes off of Elm Street, let's take examples going down the side street, where most of the accessory buildings, like the garage, is almost on the property line of the next-door neighbors. And I'm just thinking about growing up in that neighborhood. What happens in neighborhoods like older neighborhoods where if that garage is taken down and they wanted to put up a larger garage, they wouldn't be able to do that? So how is that going to be handled with this new wording?
It's not changing. It would only allow them the setbacks that are laid out here if they, like I said, if they wanted to rebuild. If they were renovating, fixing, repairing, so on, that's fine. But if they wanted to go larger and it didn't meet the setbacks, it would need a variance. That actually just happened recently with a structure in town that it was kind of like a barn type of structure that they wanted to rebuild with a slightly larger footprint, and it had to go to the Board of Appeals.
Like Chet says, I mean, I'm pretty much okay with most of it. I'm a little concerned, the 5 feet is not really a lot, you know? I mean, if the roof's going this way, the water coming off the roof's dropping on the 5 feet, well, here we are in the same one, talking about water running off, you know? It could be concerning. Is it a big deal? Not really, but 5 feet is not a lot of feet. Huh?
Just a little bit less than my height.
I don't know. And what do you?
I live on a hill.
Just raise your hand if you want to speak. Huh?
I did it, he told me, so I did raise my hand.
Okay, and then just wait till you're called up, and then you'll give your name and address. Thank you. What if we making a recommendation, right? This ain't our.
Right, so all of these, as the planning board, you make a recommendation to the town council who takes the final vote, and it needs 6 of the 9 counselors to pass.
So, in theory, if we wanted to make a recommendation that everything was good except the 5 feet, we could do that. Okay, ma'am, come on up, name and address for the record.
All right, my name's Philomena Belmer, and I live on 269 Prospect Avenue.
Can you, I can,
Oh, I'm
unfortunately, I
sorry.
read lips, so just get closer to the microphone. Go
I
ahead.
live on 269 Prospect Avenue, and I live on a hill. And even with the 8-foot, you said it was, for the fence? What was the fence?
We're not on fence.
Oh.
We're on structures and imperious surfaces.
Oh,
We haven't got into any fences yet.
oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Well,
Fences,
yeah, I'll wait then.
oh, yeah, we got this one more, and then the fences come up.
Got it, thank you.
All right,
Yes.
okay. So, before we close it, we can close it to the public if nobody else has got it. And then,
There's no other public comment?
nobody's got anything else they want to say? Nope.
All right, move to close the public hearing? Or, yeah,
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, closed. So,
so Allison, we do favorable or unfavorable, but do we provide any comments? Do we say like, is it like favorable, but like only if it's 10 feet for everything, or is it like
no,
unfavorable?
you just would have to take that 5 foot if you're against it.
So say, well, I'm saying, say we have because there's like three things, right? There's the impervious, then there's the 5 foot, and then there's the 400 foot. Like, are we doing favorable or unfavorable for all? Are we saying we're favorable if this condition is, or are we just like, is it a one?
If it's simple enough that it's not changing the intent of the ordinance, then you can say favorable with the
Changing the 5
caveat
foot to 10
that
foot?
X is changed to Y.
You know what I mean? If it's only the 5 foot that we're concerned about, we could make a favorable recommendation with one change being, instead of 5 feet, 10 feet, or whatever you choose to make as a recommendation.
Allison, now I know that you said that you've had people come and talk. Is it because they need the 5 feet, like with 10 feet, they wouldn't be able to do it? I know some properties that would be, but is that seem to be the consensus with the people that are calling?
It comes up a lot. It really does. I know some
So
of you
so if it
live
was
on,
over 5 feet, it would be, they wouldn't be able to do it.
for quite a few people, yeah.
Okay.
Just in the older neighborhoods, as Bev mentioned, the houses are pretty close together.
If you had to guess, if we took the 5 feet out, are we looking at helping 50% of the people or not even?
It's hard to say. There's a lot of houses that already have this in place. They're already either on the property line or just a few feet off, and those are fine. And then it's their neighbors that don't have it, that want it, and then it's hard to justify. It's hard to explain. Percentage-wise, I couldn't put a number on it, but you can picture the
Percentage shouldn't
neighborhoods that are tight.
I don't think percentage should matter. We should, you know. I'm okay with it because I think that if people want to put up a structure and there is smaller lots, and if over 5 feet is going to be a hardship for them and they're not going to be able to do it, then I'm okay with the 5 feet.
I mean, another thing is, if the concern is about garages, you could probably shrink the square footage to a number that really is more reflective of a shed.
You know, it's like anything else we do. Today it's 5 feet. What if a year from now they come in and say, you know, we could help a lot of people if it was 3 feet? It's, you know, where does it end? At some point, I don't know. I'm trying to picture, you know,
Can't worry
again.
about 10 years from now.
Huh?
I mean, we can't worry about 5 years from now. We
Well, yeah, that's our job.
know?
We're a planning board. We plan for the
Right.
future.
But, you know, I'm okay with it. Just want everyone to know.
Well, I'm, like, you know, I'm trying to think of, like, I look at my yard, would I want a 400 square foot garage right 5 feet from the property line?
Does it make a difference to you that it is only 200, that they really can't use it as a garage, 5 feet?
No, 200 or 400 really doesn't make a difference to me. It's that 5 feet. You know what I mean? And, you know, so all of a sudden you put a fence up on the 5 feet. Now they got 4 feet between their garage and the fence, and it becomes a storage area for junk and mice. And, you know, if you drive around and you look, I mean, I can tell you at our property in Agawam, you know, there's a house and the fence is right there, and it's just stacked up with junk and garbage and holes under the fence from the rodents, and
You're describing the space behind my garage.
all I'm saying is the 5 feet is not a lot. I would probably vote negative on, on the 5 feet. Everything else I'm okay with. 5 feet is just not a lot, and I think I hate to admit I agree with Chet, but at this point I do. And it's more of, like I said, what happens after. The fence goes up because now the house is too close to us, so I'm gonna put a fence up, and then all the stuff gets stored there. That's where they're gonna put their trash barrels. That's where they're gonna put everything, and it just becomes that's, again, one man's opinion, but.
It's still currently at 15 feet, right? It doesn't matter the structure, or 400 or less is 15 feet right now. And this was to be, I mean,
So we're adding in a 200 square foot threshold, which would be 5 and 5, 5 from the principal structure, 5 from the side property lines. That doesn't exist at all right now. Right now, it's just anything less than 400 square feet must be a minimum of 10 feet from the side and rear property lines and 15 feet from the principal structure. Greater than that is the 15 feet or the height.
So if we took the 205 out, we wouldn't be changing anything?
No, you still would. The up to 400 square feet would only have to be 5 feet from the principal structure. The 5 feet from the principal structure is also changing. I gave you the language with the bolds,
I-
which shows
yeah,
the
I-
changes. I know, it's hard to, I know when I'm speaking out all these numbers, it's hard to keep it straight.
I think I get it.
But, I mean, hey, it's, whatever, I'm one,
You know, I have to agree with Sue. I mean, I'm thinking about really the older neighborhoods in West Springfield where they don't have the property that the newer homes in town have. And so I think the 5 feet is important for them. And so I'm leaning more towards keeping the original language that you've proposed here, mostly because I'm thinking about, you know, Elm Street, down along in the Merrick areas where they, again, they don't have the property. So it's really not until we get up into these newer neighborhoods that most people aren't going to put these structures that close to the property lines and a substantial structure close to anybody's property line because everybody seems to like, you know, their privacy, and they put up fences and they have their beautiful yards. But unfortunately down here, it's not that they don't have beautiful yards, they just don't have the acreage to be able to do that. So I'm leaning more towards keeping that the 5 feet property line than restricting the square footage there.
I know I'm gonna be mad at myself for asking this question, but is there a way to somehow attach this to a special permit so that if it is in the older neighborhood and there's not a big yard, we can judge and say yes, and then if it's in the newer neighborhood and they got this huge yard and there's no reason for them to go that close? I know that goes against my principle, the less special permits the better, but I'm trying to find a way to cover, I agree with both of them, that when you get down into those yards, you're restricting them, but that's not where my concern comes. My concern comes when you get up in the other areas. So is there a way to separate them or do something?
Not the way that, I mean, it would have to be a new proposal. You couldn't make a positive recommendation conditioned on it being a special permit. That would like change the intent.
Right.
So it would be a negative vote with that comment that you might feel differently if it was by special permit. The concern that I would have is that if you're gonna make it by special permit, I don't know that tying it only to the 200 square foot structures is fair. You know, the larger, there's a clear logical reason why those would be treated differently. But to pick 200 and then greater than 600, but anything in between is not a special permit is a little odd.
Yeah, we could go back and forth. Oh, where'd Ryan go? We really shouldn't be. We can't, we'll have to take a little break because we can't, there he is, all right. That's all right. We didn't miss much or anything. I'm set, whatever you guys wanna do. We could debate it all night long, someone's gotta make a motion.
Yeah, I'll move to favorably recommend the zoning ordinance amendment to 300-6.3 general regulations applicable in all zoning districts to prohibit impervious surfaces within 5 feet of the property line with certain exceptions to allow accessory structures up to 200 square feet to be located a minimum of 5 feet of the property line, to allow accessory structures up to 400 square feet to be located a minimum of 10 feet from the property line, and to allow accessory structures to be located a minimum of 5 feet from the principal structure as proposed by the mayor.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Abstained? No. Okay. 6:05, Mayor Reichel, Counselor Griffin, and Laflamme. The hearing is to consider petition for a zoning ordinance amendment to 300-9.2 signs to add regulations for gas station pump signs which will clarify sign permit exemptions and allow price displays of top fuel pumps to have electronic changeable copy. The petitioners, Mayor Reichel, with co-sponsors, Councilors Brian Griffin and Michael Laflamme.
So this is pretty self-explanatory based on the hearing notice. The addition would be to the sign section under gas station pump sign. It would state signs required by state law shall be allowed without a permit in the minimum number and minimum size to satisfy the requirements of any applicable state law. So the state does have some requirements about signage that has to be displayed on gas station pumps. So that would allow those explicitly. Right now, it's allowed just by assumption. And the second part is allowing the price displays that are on top of the pump to have electronic changeable copy, basically to be digital, so that they don't have to go out and manually change the prices every time the price changes. It does not affect any other price displays, so like on the canopy, none of that. It's only on top of the pumps.
Any questions? Anybody out in the audience have any questions, concerns about the prices on top of gas pumps? Make a motion to close public hearing?
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Closed.
I don't need to discuss this.
Well, you gotta, not that, you gotta make another motion to,
Oh, okay. Move to favorably recommend the zoning ordinance amendment to 300-9.2 signs to add regulations for gas station pump signs, which will clarify sign permit exemptions and allow price displays of top fuel pumps to have electronic changeable copy as proposed by the mayor.
Second.
any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Approved for a favorable recommendation. Okay, is it, oh yeah, 6:10. 6:10, Mayor Reichel, the hearing is to be considered a petition for a zoning ordinance amendment to 300-9.4 fences to allow fences between the principal structure and the side street line with a minimum setback of 10 feet from the edge of the street right-of-way to preserve vehicle sight lines and to add requirements for fences around pools consistent with the state building code.
So this is difficult to explain in some ways, so I did provide you all with visuals, which I think might be helpful. Basically, if you have a corner lot and your house is set back from both of the side street lines, you can only fence in a very, privacy fence that is, you can only fence in a very small area of your lot because it can, for a privacy fence, which is a solid fence, it can't be between the house and the street. So like I said, if your house is tucked into the corner, you get this very small triangle or rectangle that can be fenced in. The other parts of the lawn can be fenced with like a chain link or anything that's 50% or less transparent or more transparent. So the proposal is to allow these corner lots to designate one of the streets as a side street and treat it as a side yard so that they can enclose additional area and make more privacy of their property than currently allowed. There is still the 10-foot setback from the street so that if you're pulling out of that street, you can see. There's still visibility. So for the camera, I'll hold up. This is, well, I should do current first. So the red lines, which you all have, is what would be allowed currently. And this is what we're proposing to allow. So that, like I said, people can have more area that is behind a fence.
Any questions? Anybody in the audience got any questions or concerns? This is the fence thing that you were concerned about, no? If you want, you gotta come up to the mic, name and address.
My name's Philomena Belmer, and I live on 269 Prospect Avenue. I think we're talking a little different, but I live on a hill, and so if you have that 10 feet, sometimes the angle, you still can't see people coming down. And also, too, on that, if you're coming out of, it's Highland Ave or you go up Bonnie Bray, and I think it's Highland, you can't see anything when you're pulling out onto Prospect Ave, taking a left-hand turn. I think it's Highland Ave. So that 10-foot is like, even in the front of the house, they had shrubs. You couldn't see people zipping through, so I would really consider a little further back than 10 feet on some streets, not all.
That's not changing with this proposal.
Because you can't see anything coming off that
Anything that's
Highland Ave.
currently, no.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not being proposed to change with this
Okay.
proposal. This is just to do with corner lots.
Okay, because I'm talking about when you're driving out of Highland Ave, and you're taking a left to go down Prospect, you can't see anybody coming down, and even with the 10-foot in the front, it's hard.
Well, the front's more than 10 feet, isn't it?
So it can't be between, so you would designate one street as the side street, the other, which in most cases is the busier of the two streets, is the primary street, and you can't have a fence between the house and the street line. So that's why it's drawn the way that it is on what I provided you. It comes off from either side of the house. So the fence will never be closer to that main street than the house,
The front of the house.
than the front of the house. On the side, however, it would be up to 10 feet. And it's from the edge of the right-of-way, which is usually actually even further back than the pavement, if that makes
Right.
sense.
I mean, realistically, it,
Not in all cases, but in most.
yeah.
All right, it's just so hard to pull out of that one road, because even with the bushes, they have, just a mess. Now, do you have anything on, like, bushes in the view on those corner lots? Because some people do put in, if you're on a hill and you're trying to pull out, you sometimes have that block.
Yeah, you would have to go down, I think, get that information through you guys or through building?
It's not really codified anywhere. It's like if anything, it would be a nuisance, I suppose, like a public safety nuisance, but it's not, it's, other than our commercial regulations, which say you can't plant shrubs in such a manner that will block visibility pulling in and out of, like, a gas station that comes up, but we don't have anything for residential.
Oh,
You would, honestly, you'd have to go to the safety officer then,
yeah,
and they would come out and they would have to decide whether it was unsafe, and then what happens from there would,
yeah.
what she's saying is there's no regulations that we could do anything about.
Oh, okay.
All right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Name and address for the record?
Pamela Breglio, 26 Wellfleet. So I heard you say something about pool fencing. Is that what we're talking about now, or is that coming later?
It's part of this, but I haven't gotten to explaining it yet. I think this is a first fence part. That's
Okay.
quite complicated, but I'm happy to talk about it.
So, fine, I will come back when you.
All right, we'll let her go. So, anything on the corner lot before we move on? So we're all good with that? Go ahead, Allison.
Yeah, so the only other addition, which was just referenced, is to clarify that swimming pools that have more than 24 inches of water have to be enclosed by fencing not less than 4 feet in height with gates capable of being locked. Said gates shall be kept locked or secured whenever said pools are not in use. So this is actually a state code requirement that, again, similar to the gas station pump signs, we're just codifying in the zoning regulations to make it clear. And the building commissioner said it's come about that the soft-sided pools, which are becoming more popular, folks are just putting them up and not fencing them in, and it is a potential safety hazard for children, animals, et cetera.
We don't have really even a choice.
No, if somebody doesn't come in for a pool permit, it becomes an enforcement issue, but if they do come in for a pool permit, regardless of what this says, Jay, our building commissioner, will require it because it's a code requirement.
So we're just bringing our,
Yeah, it's just like it's a warning. If you're looking at doing one of these, this is what the requirements
so
are.
we're just bringing our regulations up to standard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Pamela Breglio, 26 Wellfleet. So I knew this was coming up. I took a 1-block walk around my neighborhood today. There are 4 above-ground pools that are not fenced in. And I just see this ordinance taking away summertime fun for thousands of kids in town. My 4 kids, when we were growing up, we had a little pool in the backyard that was more than 24 inches. The idea of having to chain link or stockade a small pool is just prohibitive for most people. You have to have a chain link and stockade professionally installed. It's a very expensive proposition to do that. And 24 inches, I mean, I'm sorry, that's kind of crazy to say that you have to do that. And then there's the cost of the permit to have a fence put in, and probably you have to get a permit for the pool. I don't see that this has been enforced anywhere in town, that our above-ground pools have to have fencing around it. One more thing is, what about hot tubs? Why does a hot tub not have to have a fence around it? They're more than 24 inches of water, and it could be the same type of safety hazard as a pool. And then if you're a renter and you want to put up a small pool in your backyard for your kids to enjoy, you're not going to be able to do it because you have to have it chain linked or a stockade fence, and there's probably not going to be a landlord that's going to be willing to do that. So I just think that this would be taking away so many people's enjoyment of their own property. We had a terrarium pool that the whole neighborhood would be in this little small round pool. I don't know if you remember those. They were smaller but higher on the side, more than 24 inches, and I just can't see the sense of such a restrictive ordinance, using your own backyard for your children to enjoy swimming in a small pool.
Thank you. So I think I'm going to clarify this, and if I'm wrong, Allison, correct me. You can put up an above-ground pool that's 4 feet deep, and you don't need a fence around it because the walls are 4 feet high. If you put a 30-inch pool, above-ground pool, now you need to either put a fence around the top of it or around the whole pool. But if your standard pool is 48 inches deep and the walls are 48 inches high, if you have a deck, it has to be locked. If you have a ladder that goes over the side, it has to come out. But you don't have to put a stockade fence or a chain link fence around an above-ground pool that has 4-foot-high walls. Am I correct?
That's also my understanding, and my further understanding is that existing pools that were constructed prior to this code requirement wouldn't retroactively have to install fencing. Your homeowner's insurance would probably want you to, but.
Well, I mean, you've always had to have a fence around a pool, always. I mean, I've never, especially a built-in, but I'm talking above-ground pool. Like, if you had a deck on a pool, you always had to have a railing on it with a lock that I know of. I never knew of, and I remember the ladders that used to go over the side of the pool, like, if you look, some of the new ones have the stairs that fold up and they're lockable, or you had to take it out of the pool. So, again, you can put up an above-ground pool that's 4-foot walls. In theory, everything has to be 4 foot so that no one can fall in the pool. So if you got a deck, the railing has to go to the edge of the pool, and then as long as the pool's 4 feet out. Now, you got a 4-foot pool that's, some people bury halfway in the ground. Anywhere that's less than 4 feet, that's where the railing has to start. Microphone, name and address for the record, please.
My name is Dave Breglio, 26 Wellfleet Drive. I understand the pools, and we were talking, because once again, we live between houses that have pools. We don't have a pool at the current area, but I think we're far reaching. I don't know if this is because the state has the state levels of thing, but you're talking about, we do have, my son bought a inflatable pool for his daughter. He rents a house, he rents a trailer. He stores it in our garage, so in the summertime, they take it out for 2 or 3 days, they fill it up, and they play in the water, and then we take it down. Now, we're just asking, so technically, that will be against the law, because we're going to have to apply, to have a fence put around. I think that's, I almost hate to see the word foolish. It is foolish to say that people can't go to Ocean State Job Lot and buy a 3-foot pool and allow their grandchildren or their children to play in the water in the summertime. I understand the safety reasons, because safety is important, but we have so many other reasons. I don't know what the drowning factor is in 3-foot pools in West Springfield over the last 5 years. It's probably not very high, but you're still making concerns to a person. You're still adding concerns onto people that is not needed. We that own homes or rent homes or whatever should be able to have, like my wife was saying, fun in your backyard in the summertime. And if you have, we still intend, we live next to a family that has a bunch of grandchildren, and every summer they put up their little pool in the back, and technically somebody could call up and say, they have a pool. They have a 2-foot pool, and there's a bunch of kids playing in it. Hopefully, please send down the National Guard to take them away. I think we're overstepping. I think it's becoming an overstep in this. The safety reason is, yes, you have a above-ground pool or a built-in pool that needs to be safe. We have to have homeowner insurance. If we have a pool, our insurance is higher, just like anything else we do that has. So I'm just seeing that we're far-reaching to say that something that has 30 inches of water that's inflatable is such a safety hazard. We have to have a permit. We have to have a fence. And are you going to stop everybody? Absolutely not. But I just think the thought process is just another step overreaching. Thank you.
I can't say I disagree with you, but unfortunately, the hardest part of our job up here is both sides of the story. If it was, God forbid, one of your grandchildren that fell in a neighbor's pool, I think your thoughts might be a little different. I don't know, maybe not. But it's hard for us. I agree with you. We're so overregulated in this country, state and municipalities, it's ridiculous. But they can drown just as easy in a 24-inch deep pool as they can in a 48-inch pool. So I don't think the depth really has much to do with it. Where the 4-foot comes in is hopefully anybody that can get over a 4-foot fence can fend for themselves. Technically, yes, because it's on TV. Yeah, go ahead.
I got a haircut today, so I hope I don't put on TV. But you are regulating, because they are the things stating there's a 24-inch water depth. So the regulation has come in that you are now saying 24 inches, and people can die in 2 inches of water. Yeah. We have the res there. We have a fishing derby. We allow people to go everywhere, but just over-regulating, and I know you're following the laws in there. It just seems to be adding an insensibility to common sense. When we have a pool, my wife sits down. We sit down. When our grandchildren go out in the little pool, one of us sits there. And, nobody goes out there, and that's our responsibility, just like you say. If one of my grandchildren went next door to the pool, and they do go next door to the pool, one of us is sitting there. We don't allow them. And if we allow them, shame on us. That's our responsibility as a homeowner, as a pool owner, as a grandparent and a parent. So, thank you.
Anybody else?
Can I just
Any
ask?
town comments? surprising.
So this is, that's what I guess I'm having a hard time. So we do, or we, like, if this is a state requirement, why are we?
It's basically, like I said, just to give forewarning that that is going to be a requirement. It's in the fence section, so it just, if somebody was looking at all the fence regulations, they would come across it. The building commissioner asked for it to be included, just to back up
So
what the state law says.
right now, if somebody wants to get an inflatable pool, they don't actually have to get a permit.
Honestly, I don't know where that line is drawn with the, I doubt that anybody would, to be honest, and I also don't think that anybody's going out looking for it, but,
No, I got you.
I don't know where that fine line is drawn between inflatable and soft-sided, because there's,
But I don't think
more
that's
types
the,
out there now.
I don't think that's the, they're not like picking on soft-sided inflated pools. It's any pool. I mean, there's small hard-sided pools that are only,
And
you know, I don't think it has really anything in general to do with just the inflatable or
I agree.
the portable pools, I guess you'd call them, because there are small pools that aren't 4 feet deep that you would theoretically have to put a fence around, so.
if they're in ground, yeah, but to your point of, my understanding is that it's a 4-foot barrier between the walking surface and the water. So if you have an above ground and it's 4 feet tall, that's a sufficient barrier.
That's always been like that.
Same with a hot tub. It's like unless it's built in, it probably meets the standards of this anyways.
I think to answer the question, the hot tub, it has to be covered.
Or covered.
That's the difference between a hot tub and a pool. 99.9% of them have the cover on the top, so you can't fall in. I think, and I'm not code expert, but I think that's the difference, is with a hot tub, it's covered. I got nothing. Again, like you said, Ryan, we really don't, if this is gonna go, it's just matching the state. It's whether we wanna agree with them or not, but. Go ahead, one more.
So I just may be misunderstanding, but when I was reading it in the newspaper, I thought it said if it's deeper than 24 inches, you had to have a fence around it, and it either had to be stockade or chain link. So how does that jive with what you're saying now, which is if you have an above-ground pool, the pool itself, that's 4 feet, the walls of the pool is like the fence. So,
Unless the code changed, I'm not a code
Yeah.
expert, it was always 4 feet.
right. But
But-
can she clarify what that says?
So the exact reading currently is all outdoor swimming pools shall be completely enclosed by fencing not less than 4 feet in height with gates capable of being locked. Said gates shall be kept locked or secured whenever said pools are not in use. The amendment is adding swimming pools that contain water more than 24 inches deep. So as far as what the difference between a fence and the hard side of a above-ground pool,
I mean, that's pretty clear that it's a fence, which is
Yeah.
a surprise to me, and I'm gonna look at it. I mean, I don't know.
I
a
think
code
we're
book.
really splitting hairs on something that is maybe not
can I ask
needed.
you-
Well, if you have to put the fence in yourself and you have the cost of a fence, then it's not splitting hairs because they're very costly to install. And I think people want to have that clarified, whether do I have to put a fence at my expense, or is the hard-sided pool that's 4 feet sufficient? And from what you're saying, it doesn't sound like just having a 4-foot pool with a hard side is considered a fence.
I don't see why it wouldn't be either, though. I don't see the argument of a fence it's a solid barrier in one way or the other.
Well, just in the newspaper, it said chain link or stockade.
What's
that
the-
was a-
The newspaper we can't go by,
Right.
Can you
But that was
please
the
read that
concern.
one more time?
Do you want me to read the proposed or existing?
No, the existing.
Okay. all permanent outdoor swimming pools shall be completely enclosed by fencing not less than 4 feet in height with gates capable of being locked. Said gates shall be kept locked or secured whenever said pools are not in use. So the only addition is the 24 inches, because that was an amendment in the state building code requirements.
And they removed permanent.
Correct, because those soft-sided pools are like semi-permanent.
I thought I heard you say solid barrier, which would have been the wall, but that.
Well, no, I'm drawing the comparison between a solid barrier and a fence. A solid barrier is more secure than a fence, arguably, so. I really don't think the building commissioner is gonna go out there and tell you to put a chain link fence around the edge of your above-ground pool, but I'm not him, so I can't say for sure.
Unfortunately, we can't give you the exact answer to the code. I mean, you'd really have to talk, and I personally am gonna do it, because now I'm a little bit confused. I want the answer. But you'd have to go to the building department and get that answer. I will try and get it. If you want to contact me, that's fine. But as long as I remember, I will be doing that tomorrow. Yeah.
You just read it. You just said the word permanent. So any of these inflatables that are not, they're not permanent. So they could, technically, those are really, we're looking at, because that was the word she just used.
Right.
Was permanent. So all these inflatables that we buggered and put up for a weekend or whatever are really not a permanent thing, so they shouldn't fall under that. Any of
No,
this.
the permanent is being stricken
Oh,
because
we're
that
taking
was,
permanent out.
that was part of the state's amendment.
Right, the amendment is taking permitted out because of the soft-sided pools.
Oh, okay.
Motion to close public hearing?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Closed.
You want me to make the motion, or do you want?
I mean, I don't think we have a choice.
Well, I think this is a little ridiculous. I would move for an unfavorable recommendation, but
You
based
can make
solely on
whatever
pool. All right.
motion you want.
So I would move for an unfavorable recommendation, or to unfavorably recommend the zoning ordinance amendment 300-9.4 fences to allow fences between the principal structure and the side street line. Can we divvy this up? Because I don't disagree with the fences, but so it's gotta be, all right, it's okay.
So you could make a favorable recommendation with a suggestion of a change to the part you don't like,
Can I do that? I can do that?
as long
I
as it's
can't-
not huge.
Yeah, I mean, there is no objective yes or no. It's if it changes the average person's understanding of what the intent of this was. So if you tell the public in a public hearing notice that we're gonna allow, 400 square foot signs in the business A district, and then you change it to, 400 square foot signs in the residential district, like, that's not what they could have expected reasonably an outcome to be, so.
So the other thing is you make an unfavorable recommendation and with an explanation that because you don't like the pool part.
All right. So I would move for to unfavorably recommend the zoning ordinance amendment to 300-9.4 fences to allow the fences between the principal structure and the side street line with a minimum setback of 10 feet from the edge of the street right-of-way to preserve vehicular sight lines and to add requirements for fences around pools consistent with the state building code as proposed by the mayor for the sole reason of the pool regulation of 24 inches or more.
So just. No matter what, we need a second, then we'll clarify what the vote.
Second,
Okay.
sorry.
So just to be clear, he's making a negative recommendation. If you agree with him, it would be a yes vote. If you disagree with him, it would be a no vote. So, all those in favor of sending a negative recommendation to the council?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstained? 3-1-0. Okay. I forgot where I left off, hold on. Oh, right here. 6:15, Mayor, Reichel, Counselor Smith, and Laflamme. The hearing is to consider a petition for a zoning ordinance amendment 300-2.1, terms defined. Add the term and definition for impervious surface coverage and an amendment to 300 Table 6-2, Table of Height and Bulk Regulations to add a column for impervious surface coverage of lot, which will set maximum percentage for each zoning district. So my first question is, where's the percentages?
You have them.
I do? Sorry. You're right, I did look at that. That was in my email from Lynn.
And I printed them. So currently, we only regulate maximum building coverage of a lot. We do not regulate overall impervious surface area. Just to clarify, impervious surface is defined as any material that substantially reduces or prevents the infiltration of water into the underlying soil. And just to give some examples, this includes but is not limited to patios, roofs, driveways, streets, parking lots, and other similar surfaces. Porous paving, paver blocks, gravel, crushed stone, elevated structures, including decks, and other similar structures, surfaces, or improvements are considered impervious. So, by contrast, a pervious surface, if the rainwater were to fall on it, it would absorb to some extent, much more so than an impervious surface. So grass is pervious. Dirt, if it's not hard compact, is pervious. Just natural, in its natural state, is not pervious. So, as I said, we don't currently have regulations for overall impervious, and this is another reactive change. Over time, our storm events have become more intense. We get a lot more rainfall in a short amount of time, and it has nowhere to go when it falls on an impervious surface, but the path of least resistance, and in some cases, that's into your neighbor's yard and then into their basement. So we're trying to put some cap on the amount of impervious that people can have, and what is being proposed is more than 99% of what people have. There's just that small 1% that goes further. So in addition to the percentages table that I provided you, I gave you a breakdown of the actual conditions in each zoning district. So for example, the most restrictive is in the Residence A zone. That's where we have our largest lots. The minimum lot size is 40,000 square feet, just to give you an example, and we're allowing up to 50%, so 20,000 square feet of impervious area. Now, the analysis shows that the average impervious in that district is 12.05%. So, and the median is 4,435 square feet. So it's literally a quarter of the maximum that we're proposing. So this is really just to regulate the extreme. And over time, it may be that with climate change, we want to make these tighter. That is a conversation for in the future, but for now, we're just trying to curb the most extreme circumstances from occurring.
There's notes here, they can still apply for special permits if there's.
Not for the impervious. Those notes are tied to the other regulations in the table, such as height. You can apply for a special permit for height.
The only one I question is a deck. I mean, I don't know how that, the water goes through the cracks in the wood. I don't see how that but I mean, I don't have a problem with it either way, looking at what it's gonna really affect. But I got nothing.
I mean, will this pose an issue with like parking and everything else like that, in the future, Allison?
So the way that it's written, the commercial districts, the most restrictive is 75% in the business A1 and business B districts. Business A1 is Park Street, Park Ave. Business B is the Union Street, Myron Street, and some of the more industrial areas of town. So, yes, if somebody wanted to pave corner to corner, they wouldn't be able to do that. They currently can't do that anyways because we have landscape buffer requirements, but this would limit them maybe even a little bit further than what those landscape buffers are. Not dramatically. So business B, the average coverage is 61%, and we're proposing 75%. It wouldn't affect any existing conditions, it would just apply, to new improvements to property.
So the larger the lot, the more it would affect the amount of parking spots. If, you know what I mean, you're going by percentage. Small lot, you'd only lose one parking spot. Big lot, you could lose 20, 30.
So this is also in reaction to the municipal stormwater system. We have a permit through the federal government because our stormwater discharges into the river, which is a federally regulated water body. And through that permit process, we have to show that we're making certain strides in our local regulation of stormwater to show that we're trying to improve not only the amount of stormwater, but the quality of the stormwater that's discharging into the rivers, because there are environmental concerns with chemicals and pollutants and such in the rivers. Also, we maintain our local stormwater system much the same as a water and sewer system, and it costs money, whereas water and sewer, we charge residents for the use of it. Stormwater, there is no charge to residents. So as I said, as we get these more intense rain events and more water that is just running straight into the street and into our utilities, the cost to the town is rising and they're aging. And so we're trying to be proactive about not getting to a place where the systems fail or that they're undersized. And that has already happened in some cases, and it's a very expensive fix to go in and replace an existing line with a new storm line. So, as I said, this is less reactive, more proactive, but in some cases, there are the folks that take it to the extreme that we've had complaints about. Tierra Lane comes to mind.
Surprise.
So.
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
Anything else before I open it up? Anybody in the audience? Anybody in the audience? Anybody in the, oh, Jack, come on up.
Chet Zemmerhaus, 41 Old Barn Road. Just a question on a clarification on Impervious, figuring out the percentage. Is structure and roof lines a part of that percentage as well?
It is.
Okay, so then I'm going to play devil's advocate in this point because we made the point in the first hearing that people in the older section of town couldn't build within 5 feet of an area. So they're going to run into the same problem with this, I believe, because they don't have a lot of green space, and if they want to put in a patio, paver patio, something like that, they may not be able to. I'm not gonna say they can't do it, but they may not be able to, because the structure will be part of the calculation, and then any pavement that's on the property. And when they have very little green space, if you put down specific percentages, you're not gonna allow them, in many cases, to put in a patio, which is gonna improve their property. So just something to consider. Again, I think it's a good proposal, but just to play devil's advocate, these are the things that you considered in the first hearing. You might want to consider them in this hearing as well. Thank you.
That's twice you surprised me tonight. That's pretty good. So theoretically, if you want to go play the devil's advocate, and someone wanted to put a 20 by 20 garage up down in the old section of town, and they don't have a big backyard, they're not going to be able to do it based on percentage of impervious coverage.
Yeah, so the residency district is the Merrick neighborhood, which in my mind is one of the most dense with the smallest lot sizes. We're proposing 75% max coverage. So if you have
50 by 100.
5,000 square foot lot, you can have 3,750 square feet of impervious area. The footprint of the house is, I don't know, 1,000 maybe. The driveway is another 1,000, 2,000. So I did click around, in addition to these averages, I did click around to see where things fell, like the most extreme circumstances, as I keep mentioning, and there's like a handful of properties that are outside of this. There are not many that even really come close to it. You'd be surprised how far it actually gets you. 75% of a property is a lot. It really is. And it's much higher in the business districts. Like the business A is 90%, so you only need 10% of your lot to not be covered.
I'm okay with it. Huh? Yeah, it's, but I mean, you could go back through every regulation and find one that affects another, right?
Right.
Thank you for pointing that out. I didn't even notice the resident C was higher.
Yeah, and just for reference, the average in that residency zone, which again is Merrick neighborhood, is 45% coverage, so.
Right now.
Yeah, as of the date of this
Right,
being created.
right.
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, closed.
I move to favorably recommend the zoning ordinance amendment to 300-2.1 terms defined, to add the term and definition for impervious surface coverage, and an amendment to 300 table 6.2, table of height and bulk regulations, to add a column for impervious surface coverage of lot, which will set a maximum percentages for each zoning district.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, approved. Okay, approval not required.
So that is not ready for this evening. We'll take it up at the next meeting.
Good. Acceptance of minutes from April 6th, 2022.
Move to approve the minutes of April 6th planning board meeting as prepared.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained,
Aye.
approved. Action items? Nothing. New old business? Nothing.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night.